The sit-in movement, and of course we are talking to Attorney Blackshear in reference to not only the sit-in movement, but in reference to the civil rights movement itself. Let's continue where we left off the last time, Attorney Blackshear.
What I was saying is that I remember when we were in Dennis Grill and asked to leave, and we refused to leave, and they called Metro Atlanta Police Department. And I remember this detective named Captain Little, never forget him. And during those days, they had the wagon and things of this type, and it was controversial and noteworthy, so a lot of TV cameras and so forth. And I was one of the soldiers. I was not a leader. I was just a member. I was just a freshman in college. And so they carried us down and put us in the bullpen, and they didn't quite know what to do with us. And so they put us on some kind of quick bond of $100. All you had to do was pay $10 and bond yourself out, but we refused to do it. We were operating under the concept of jail versus bail. We wanted to go to jail to dramatize the treatment of black people in the South. So that's why we wanted to go to jail and didn't want to get bailed out. So they put us, I remember me and a person from Clark College. I don't know his name, I just remember his nickname was Puddin'. We were put in a cell that night with 14 hardened criminals. Well, I'm being facetious when I say that. Just say 14 young men who've been accused of committing a crime. There may have been others. And we ended up socializing them. We started increasing their consciousness. They were basically illiterate. We were writing letters for them, and they were interested in all of what we were doing because notwithstanding their lack of education and notwithstanding their confrontation with the criminal justice system, they were black themselves and they understood what we were doing. So we were perceived to be heroes for them. And so we began to talk to them about John Locke, the Lockean concept, the natural rights theory, the moral laws of the universe, and how all men are born free. And we began to echo the words of Thomas Jefferson as subscribed in the Declaration of Independence and things of this type. And so the jail keepers didn't like that because we were arousing the consciousness of the inmates. So we were let out anyway, whether we posted bail or not. We didn't have to pay the $10 to turn us loose. So, but during that time I was in jail. You know, we busted the rocks on the chain gang from on the Highway 41 between Atlanta and Marietta.
They actually had you.
Oh yeah. And so you went through that kind of indignity, but eventually you're let out. And then you continue on. You might get arrested again. And so we were all being coordinated by this organization called SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Every college, Tennessee State, Morehouse, all the colleges had the little individual student organizational groups that were doing it. You needed one big national organization to coordinate these efforts. And that's why SNCC was formed, out of the necessity to do that. And so Julian Bond, as I said, became the director of communications, and John Lewis became the chairman in 1963. Now, I'll tell you why this is important. You remember the March on Washington? And we pretty much center our attention on Martin Luther King's speech.
I Have a Dream.
I Have a Dream in Washington. But see, those who lived during that period know that there were a lot of speeches being made that day. John Lewis, on behalf of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, is going to make a speech too. His speech was so full of anger that the civil rights leaders had to moderate the speech before he gave it.
His leaders.
Right. And when he gave it, it still was an angry speech. That was during this time that Kennedy was the president of the United States. And we all had it out that the Kennedy administration was very sympathetic toward the black students who were participating in the civil rights movement and so forth, and being sicked on by dogs, by Bull Connor in Birmingham, and things of this type. And this March on Washington was a feel-good movement, and not trying to diminish Martin Luther King, but if you look at the speech again, it was a feel-good speech. But when John Lewis got up, John Lewis made a statement that, why are we up here trying to make everybody feel good? There are a lot of starving brothers who can't afford transportation costs to be here. He began to challenge President Kennedy, which nobody else did. He said, why aren't your troops down there in Americus, Georgia, where they are killing the black kids now for demonstrating? Why aren't your troops in Danville, Virginia, when you got young black people having a death penalty imposed upon them for doing no more but engaging in peaceful demonstration? And Lewis kept talking that way, and finally he ends up saying, he said, all of you may be up here trying to make us all feel good, but as members of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, I'll tell you, there will not be a cooling off period. Now, that set the tone for the whole world to understand that Martin Luther King was our spiritual leader, but the persons who actually organized, conducted, and furthered the cause of the sit-in demonstrations that culminated in the formation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act were leaders like John Lewis, the chairman, Julian Bond, the director of communication, and a whole lot of unknown, unsung participants, both men and women, such as myself, who went to jail and suffered indignities for that reason. And it was more than sit-ins. We also participated in boycotts. Well, A&P in Atlanta, for example, we boycotted the A&P in the rain. I remember it was raining, with the placards going around, trying to dramatize the situation of not hiring black employees beyond the level of stockroom boys. Didn't have no cashiers or any positions of some worth or some dignity. So we began to dramatize that by our boycotts. Now, again, that was a student nonviolent coordinating committee.
Very good. And of course, this whole movement is almost exclusively a college kind of movement. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Now, it was almost exclusively a college type of movement. I also need to clarify something else. There were a significant number of white students, Agnes Scott in Atlanta, and places like that joined that movement as well. And they were likewise subjected to indignities as being nigger lovers, so to speak. So that needs, and then also high school students were part of this.
Let us have this commercial break, and then we'll get back and we'll allow you to continue that. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Topic is the sit-in movement.